Welcome to the State of the Market for Law Firm Sales. My name is Jeremy Pook, and I lead Senior Attorney Match. Today's episode will focus exclusively on personal injury law and the state of the market for personal injury law firm sales in particular. I'm very excited to welcome Seth Deutsch and Jordan McMillian. They are part of and lead Samson Partners Group, and we'll be discussing today their involvement with the sales of personal injury law, including the introduction of private equity funds into the personal injury law marketplace, as well as MSOs, valuations, and a lot more. So very excited to welcome both Seth and Jordan. Seth, love to hear from you first, introduction about yourself, and then Jordan.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us. I'm the founder of Samson Partners Group and Samson Partners Capital. By way of background, I'm an operator, CEO by background. The largest professional services group that I ran had 10,000 employees, $2 billion of revenue across 80 countries. I've now been a part of 11 private equity-backed platforms, either as a CEO, board chairman, or a board member. Have done over now 80 acquisitions in my career. And a few years ago, Jordan and I joined forces to start Samson to basically take all of that experience working with and for private equity and bring it to founders. We basically exist to help founders understand what it is that they want that when they're seeking a recapitalization or exit event, and help them think through and structure the business so that it is investor ready. And it's just been an honor and a privilege to work with so many founders to do that.
Wonderful. Jordan, please.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm very excited to be here. I've been an operator in the professional services space for over 15 years. Seth and I have been together for about 15 years as sort of the visionary integrator duo that we have been. I have been the COO about 5 times over in PE-backed buy and builds, and I have done about 35 integrations of acquisitions. And it's my pleasure to work with so many founders, and it's also been so much fun. I can't help it. I have to mention it's been so much fun to work with Seth because we've been together for so wonderful to be doing this together.
Terrific. All right. Well, great. Thanks so much. So let's jump right into it. We've got a number of questions today. So our first question is, why did Samson Partners Group identify personal injury law as ripe for opportunities for Samson's private equity legal alliance, PILA?
Sure. So, it dates back, about 4 years now. We were called by a founder who had the vision of bringing private equity into their firm to execute a buy and build in both the personal injury law firm space and the estate and wealth planning space. It's not something that we had experience in at that point in time. Fast forward to today, we've worked across almost 10 PI firms, preparing them for private equity. We've worked across 8 sectors of legal. But as we take a look at the PI space specifically, and there are a few other sectors of the legal industry that are really attractive to institutional investors, the reason is that when we take a look at PI, for example, there's not a lot of key man dependency. These are really brand-driven firms that are attracting clients through their brand as opposed to through people. This is really, really important in all professional services organizations or any business where, let's say, the work is dependent on a person or the generation of revenue is dependent on a person, and that person can leave and the work might follow. Specifically, in the legal industry, you can't get non-competes on lawyers. And so many PI firms, clients are doing business with the firm, not necessarily with a person. They're not going to that firm because they expect a particular lawyer to handle their case. And so from a human capital perspective, that gives investment committees who are institutional investors who are investing in these types of businesses, gives them a lot more confidence to invest in this, especially because they're really investing in these. Unless you're in Arizona, you're investing in this through, let's say, an MSO structure. And so they have even less control The other thing is that these businesses have quite a bit of backlog. So a lot of, revenue that's built up depending on the time on desk. Some firms, have, let's say 10 months time on desk. Some firms have up to 2.5 years time on desk. And so whatever revenue you're receiving today, maybe you signed up 2 years from now and you might have 2 years of revenue in the kitty. They're also, highly engineered from a technology perspective and automation perspective. And a lot of the firms have really kind of done the work to reduce the dependency even more so on human labor. And in many cases, you are settling these. It's really a cost of sales to the insurance industry. These are really kind of settled. At the end of the day, the majority of matters you are settling with an insurance company as the off-taker, as the payer who has an obligation to pay. So these things, make the industry highly investable. And we created the Alliance because to do these deals, you have to bring in a number of third parties beyond us, the business people. You've got to bring in business structuring attorneys, MSO structuring attorneys, legal ethicists, valuation experts. We cannot do this. This is not like any other industry. So it requires us to bring in a team of providers to help founders and institutional equity do this, which is why we created PILA.
Terrific. So that leads us to valuation. And as we're going to ask you a question on valuation, Seth, and Jordan, you as well, when you were just giving the explanation about why get involved, it reminded me of our first time that we met Seth, which was literally just a couple of weeks ago at a conference about ABSs, Alternative Business Structures. It was the 4th annual conference about ABSs. And I distinctly remember you talking about predictability and the importance of predictability. So I just wanted to share that with you as we lead into our next question. So our next question is, could you please share 5 factors that Samson considers when valuing a PI Life law firm? And by the way, it doesn't have to be exactly 5, could be less, could be more. Just curious to know those factors. And Jordan, love to hear from you as well on several of those factors.
Yeah, I'll start and then I'll let Jordan take over where it comes to technology, operational excellence, and quality of financials. I'll let Jordan take those 2. But yes, every business, when you're looking at an outside investor, and we write about this in our book, The Owner's Manual, all investors care about is the predictability of future cash flow, right? And so the first thing that they take a look at is leadership and succession. How much of the business is dependent on, let's say, the founder or the owner? So the extent to which this has been minimized, and let's say the founder has hired a CEO and a chief marketing officer and is no longer managing the lawyers. Perhaps someone else is doing that. The extent to which the founder is really no longer involved in the day-to-day business, that is a really, really critical thing. Then we take a look at things like culture and employee turnover. Those are really, really critical things when we take a look at the business and how strong the leadership team is, how strong the lawyer base is, et cetera. And we take a look at then again, dependency, how dependent beyond the founder is the business on other people. If these folks were to leave the firm, how predictable is our forecast and our ability to hit that? And then the other thing that we look at in all private businesses is client concentration. And so typically in firms that are going to get very high valuation, we take a look at, let's say, the matter types in this case. We want to look at the business and say, the top 20, 30, clients make up, less than, let's say, 10% of the business. Should that matter not settle in your favor? Should that client leave and go somewhere else? Losing 1 or 2 or 3 clients will not have a material impact on the firm's ability to produce the cash flows that it's promised to investors. I'll let Jordan talk about operations, technology, and financial stability and financial reporting.
Yeah, so we do look at quality of financials. One thing I will say about that is you'll want investor-ready financials. So what this means is you'll typically want to use someone, augment the staff that you have currently. So if you have a bookkeeper or somebody who's running your accounting, you'll want much more of a forward-looking forecast. You'll, of course, want your kind of trailing 12 months of financials, but you'll really want to get a sense of what kind of growth trajectory the firm is on. And you'll want to be able to draw that down to the financials and draw that down to a forecast. So really important that you get some help. And I would say that's one thing that everyone always thinks is going to be pretty straightforward. Everyone thinks their books are in really good order until you start to get into forecasting and things like that. So best to start early on that. When it comes to operational excellence, which is another area that we really focus on quite heavily, the important thing here is really to be clear about what we call what type of shop you are. And so I won't go into too much detail about the different types and all of the KPIs and everything that we would look at, but I'll just kind of mention, we would really consider, the top 2 or 3 types of firms to be like a turnkey shop, where you are taking both settlement and litigation. We would, of course, want to see the right ratios of attorneys to case managers. We would want to see that mix come through in your average settlement value and that time on desk. Then you also would have maybe a settlement referral shop where you're actually finding more of a sweet spot of maybe policy limits type of cases, but you're referring out things that are not meaty enough for you, but also referring out litigation work as well. And again, we would take a look at those ratios. We would take a look at average settlement value. And then you might have a hybrid in between. But what's really important is that you know what kind of shop you are, you know what kind of firm you are, and that we can see that in those KPIs and in those metrics. Another critical thing with operational excellence that we're always looking at, Seth touched on it a little bit, but is that role definition, those processes, and ensuring that those processes are not key man dependent or have any kind of bottlenecks, but that the firm can really run without you or without any other key individual.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. All right. So for our next question, which I think is really the question that a lot of listeners and viewers, are curious about, is that, as sales of PI firms continues to buzz throughout the industry, what range of multiples of EBITDA do you observe and do you foresee? And Seth, we'll start with you, please.
Sure. So, yeah, I would say that today we see everything from firms being untransactable to deals happening that are still highly structured with no cash at close, especially with very small businesses with a high degree of key man dependency. That will continue to occur. But what I would say is that for firms that fit the maturity curve that Jordan and I were just talking about, depending on their size. So if you have low key man dependency, if you have really good operations, a really good tech stack, high quality financials, your firm's really dialed in, to quote some friends of mine, it's been fireproofed, let's say. What we're seeing is that valuations range anywhere between from 3 to 6 times trailing 12 months EBITDA. And a lot of founders also don't understand exactly what EBITDA is. And remember, distributions go away unless you're taking on a minority stake where they're just buying a portion of the distributions. But for the most part, you've got to normalize that for founder or employee compensation. And so that's the typical trade range. We are occasionally seeing some mega shops be able to touch a little bit above a 6. But we are at but you've got to be well north of 50, 60 million of EBITDA to touch above a 6. You've got to have the ability to do serial acquisitions. Maybe you've already done some acquisitions, in your history. You've proven that you can add value to those companies that you've acquired. And then we're seeing a whole range of deal structures as well. And so, depending on, all the metrics and how the business is looking across all the dimensions that we talked about, we're still seeing a number of, we see everything from, 30% cash at close, 3-year earnout or 3-year seller's note to a third rollover equity. We see deals that are, 60 to 70% cash at close, then with, 30, 35% rollover. The deal structure is the other aspect of this. And so valuation, deal structure, play into this. But there are very few deals where you're just walking away with well, really no deal that we've seen where you're just walking away with all your cash at close. These industries, the valuations won't move much from here for some time. And this happens at the beginning of every single cycle when an industry begins to consolidate, until someone has realized an exit and we understand what is someone going to pay us next for this asset. Think of a redeveloping community where you are going in and let's say you're redeveloping, a portion of a city that has been kind of left for ruin. You're the first one coming in. You just don't know how it's going to go for a period of time. Other people might follow you, but they're not going to pay more than what you did. What you're waiting to see happening as a developer is when I'm ready to sell this property, once a lot of people have followed me in here and this has really taken root, what is the next buyer going to pay? That is when we start to see valuations go up or go down. And they don't always go up. I mean, the biggest concern I'd say that we have here is that someone comes in and does this poorly. Someone does this unethically. Someone destroys value. They buy a firm, they think they know what they're doing, and they mess it up, and then they're going to mess it up for everybody, right? So these are the things that we're concerned about. But valuations really kind of stay stuck in a range once that range is determined for a period of time until such time that there's been a next transaction. Everyone kind of draws corollaries here to the CPA space. And it wasn't until, Citron Cooperman sold to Blackstone 4 or 5 years after that platform and 30 others had been created that we then saw a rise in valuations, both for platforms and for add-ons. So these things take time to develop.
All right, that's great. And by the way, so then I'll put the pause button on the second part of that question, which was the foreseeability. Okay, you touched on it a bit. I think also viewers and listeners are going to be thinking to themselves, okay, we've talked about how private equity is coming in, as we know, in almost all states, right? Except for Arizona, Washington, D.C. We're seeing Utah that they are sunsetting what they started to do, right? For the most part, there's non-lawyers are not allowed to own law firms. So we're going to move into our next question, which is, what is a MSO? And what role do you foresee for MSOs in the sales of personal injury law firms?
So I will speak to this gently because we are business people. We are called here we did not create MSOs. They've existed actually in the legal industry in the United States for a long time. There's a new article out today as we're recording this from Holland and Knight, from Tricia Rich and Josh Porden, the team there, which shows that MSOs have been going on in the United States for more than 20 years in the legal industry. We don't have a stake in this one way or another. We simply are responding to what founders want as they're seeking liquidity or seeking growth through the bringing in outside capital, and what institutional investors want. We don't make these rules, and we can't really weigh in on this, but we can describe it, generally, which is basically an MSO is where you are basically creating a managed service organization that is everything but the lawyer. Imagine that you are separating this business into two entities. And this is the same thing that happens, let's say, across the medical industry. Here you have the lawyers, and over here you have everything else: the brand, IT infrastructure, marketing, paralegals, customer support, IT, benefits, HR, real estate management, et cetera. It is, and then you are basically, that managed service organization is then providing that infrastructure as a service back to the lawyers. So that is, generally speaking, what an MSO is. Now, there are some really important things there. Number one, law firms must stay in control. So across jurisdictions, the ethical analysis is 100% clear and consistent. These arrangements absolutely require the law firm to firmly remain at the helm, directing every single aspect of legal work and exercising unqualified authority over professional judgment. The outside entity, whether it's a PEO, whether it's an employee leasing company, whether it's a management company, an outsourcing provider, all the things we kind of couch in, MSO, they operate strictly in a supportive role to enable, the firm. And so what is really important in all of these things, and this is why we have to bring in deal structurers, legal ethicists, valuation folks, as we're helping institutional capital and founders do this. Number one, preserve the independence of legal judgment. Number two, avoid fee splitting and revenue-based compensation. Number three, maintain a clear division between legal services and law-related services. Number four, protect confidentiality and data governance. Number five, manage conflicts thoroughly. Number six, supervision of non-lawyer personnel. Lawyers must remain responsible for the conduct of non-lawyer personnel performing these delegated services. And so lawyers must supervise the MSO personnel. And so typically the lawyers, when they have their rollover equity, it's going to be in the MSO. And the last point is there's nothing to hide here. These have been going on in the United States for a long, long time. Communicate honestly to everyone about the structure. Jordan, anything you want to add to that?
My goodness, no, that was incredibly comprehensive. What I can say is, in terms of starting an MSO, or if you're running a PI firm right now and you're thinking, what do I need to do about this in order to prep for a transaction? Do I have to start my MSO? What I would say is an MSO is a tool. It's not the goal. You really want to focus on your law firm and don't get twisted up in the MSO structure. Of course, that's what folks like Seth or myself are around and can support, that thought process and that decision making. But you need to run the law firm. And so that is critical. There's too many folks that get twisted up in the new thing of the day. Yeah. And the most important thing is to run a great law practice.
Yeah. And we've, as Jordan said, we are business people. And so, and our entire reason for existing is for helping founders achieve what they want. So, many times we're called in and they think they need this or they think they need that. We go back to basically root and say, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Now, I will say that we do see some founders, you do not need to do this ahead of the transaction, by the way. But what we do see happening is some founders that want to scale their firm ahead of a transaction to build more value into the firm. And to do that, they might need to recruit and retain some non-lawyers who are going to be really, really critical for them to execute their vision. So they might want to hire a president from the outside. They might want to hire a COO. They might want to hire a chief marketing officer. And they are now competing for talent with other businesses that can offer that talent stack equity or options. In those cases, some founders may decide, even though they're not bringing on non-lawyer ownership, to set up an MSO so that they can give those non-lawyer executives equity in the MSO. But you also don't have to do that. You can just basically pledge phantom equity, right? Or some types of transaction bonuses, et cetera. If at some point in time in the future, there is a transaction and an MSO is established. But these are the reasons. But again, it comes back to what is it that you're trying to achieve, and then we design from there, and then we bring in the cast of characters to help us.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. All right, so we've got a couple questions left while Seth and Jordan are with us. So our next question, going back to the foresee. Okay, so what do you foresee as opportunities for platform acquisitions and tuck-in acquisitions during the next 5 years? And as I understand tuck-in acquisitions, because this is another catchphrase that's really buzzing around the industry, is roll-ups, right? You may not be at that platform acquisition level, but what about PI law firms that qualify as tuck-ins, as roll-up opportunities?
Yeah, so we've written a lot about this. So we have a white paper that's coming out on January 5th about the PI space in North America specifically. But again, we operate across architecture, engineering, construction, environmental, 7-8 sectors of legal, blue collar trades. We've been doing this for a long, long time. in our book, The Owner's Manual, we talk about a lot the difference between a platform and an add-on. So I'd encourage everyone to go read the book. And then we also teach classes on M&A where we go 2-3 day classes where we go into great detail on all these things. But I just want to kind of put that out there. There's a lot of information that we have for you that's available so you can learn more about this. But generally speaking, a platform is the company, the firm that, an investor is going to come say, you guys are best in class and we are betting on your team, your firm, and then we're going to invest capital and talent into your business to grow. And eventually what investors are hoping to gain along with their shareholders is a 3 to 5 times return on capital. Let's say if you're private equity in a 4 to 6 year horizon, if you're a family office, you've got a longer term horizon. But a platform is a foundation upon which you are then going to either grow de novo, let's say opening new branches, just investing in marketing, hiring more people. That's one way to grow. The other way to grow is through acquisition. And then there's the third, which is a combination of the both. But a platform is a business that's typically very sizable and is going to be the hub from which other spokes, add-on acquisitions, are added. And so what founders have to think about is, you have to be of a certain size and sophistication to qualify to be a platform generally. And there are different types of private equity firms. And so some private equity firms will be looking for platforms in the, let's say, $7 to $10 million EBITDA range. Others are looking for platforms in the $10 to $25 million EBITDA range. Some are looking for platforms in the $50 to $100 million EBITDA range. So there are different investors looking at different sizes. And so what I would say over the next 5 years is it would not surprise me if there were 6 to 8 institutionally backed, private equity backed, if not more, but at least in the next 2 to 3 years, 6 to 8 platforms that are out there seeking additional add-on acquisitions. I think that it is highly feasible, from what I can tell, that there's room in the market for there to be these buy and builds or roll-ups that could be north of 300 to 500 million of EBITDA, 6 or 7 of them, all competing for the same add-on acquisitions, for the same talent, for the same leads. But we could see that this has happened in other industries. And it's not to say that after this initial wave that there won't be additional opportunities, let's say 3 years in to be the next platform. But what we find happening is that the best investors are backing the best platforms at the beginning of an industry consolidation. And those platforms are attracting their friends because the personal injury industry peer groups a lot, right? Masterminds a lot. And so these folks that are say, hey, I want to go first. I want to be the platform. All my friends come join me. The best assets as well, even though it's a highly fragmented space, 55 billion in revenue, 50,000 personal injury law firms, in the United States across all shapes and sizes. But in this first 2-3 years, what we're going to see are the best investors are going to partner with the best platforms, and they're going to do the best add-on acquisitions. There will be a whole wave of people following that, right? So there will be the next wave of platforms and consolidators, but they are imitating typically the best that have already gone first. So there will be ample opportunity, right, for people to be platforms, for people to be add-on acquisitions. Founders don't have to do anything. You can just kind of hang out, chill, wait to see what happens, hope that the valuations go up, right? What we hope for everyone is that every single one of these goes well. All that it takes is one bad deal, one bad actor, a combination between a founder and a management team to screw up something that was beautiful before the investor stepped in and monkeyed with it and made it worse, right? So what our hope is that, and the industry's hope, this is really, really important. Everyone needs to be rooting for everyone. There is plenty of opportunity here. This is a massive market. If we take a look at dental, which is 25 years into consolidation in the United States, 15% is now, owned by private equity. The multiples have, really expanded. There's been a lot of wealth created, but it's not for everyone. If we take a look at the CPA space, which started this just in 2021 in the United States, here we are about 5 years later. And, about 30% of the top 30 accounting firms in the United States are now private equity platforms, and they've done hundreds of add-on acquisitions. What we want is for everyone to do well. You all are going to be in competition with each other. You are. But I want to remind everyone that as an industry moves, as an industry indexes, right, we all want success for one another. One platform or one add-on success leads to the entire industry having success.
Wonderful. Seth, thanks so much. All right, so we'll have one more question, and then we'll go into some final thoughts. So I think this question is really tailor-made for Jordan. Jordan, you talked before about investor-ready financials. So this question is focusing on single event personal injury law firms in the United States. What advice do you have for firms with 10 million plus in EBITDA, firms between 3 million and 10 million in EBITDA, and firms with 3 million or less in gross revenues who don't track EBITDA yet, right? In the context of today's conversation, right, about private equity coming into sales of personal injury law firms, looking at those three categories from an investor-ready financial standpoint, just curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so with the law firms that are in kind of that larger category, the 10 million plus, my general advice is to really focus on that operational excellence pillar. And what I mean by that is to really, it's very likely that you've been running the firm and running the business, and kind of whatever you net is gravy for you. But now, if you are preparing for an exit, now it's about really making sure that you can squeeze the margin that you possibly have within the business, squeeze that out. Now, that could be through an MSO type of structure, but it could not. It could be that you actually need to centralize your intake. It could be that you need to consider moving to a much leaner pod structure. Could be that you don't have the right processes in place. Operational excellence tends to go by the wayside as you start it bigger. And it gets a little bit more challenging to put your arms around the business. That's when you need to double down on the operational excellence. As it relates to folks that are kind of on the lower end of the spectrum that you list out, Jeremy, what I would recommend is very likely you have been kind of the person wearing all of the hats. And it's really important that you take a look at succession planning, roles and responsibilities, and that key man risk. That is very likely one of the sticking points. And again, assuming that you want to be in the driver's seat when it comes to your own valuation and your own deal structure, very important that you mitigate that as a risk. And the last thing that I'll say is across the board, in all of those categories, it's really important that you start to demonstrate from a marketing perspective, start to demonstrate that you can get into digital. Because one of the things that I think everyone in this space knows at this point is that kind of traditional marketing, SEO, PPC, billboard, TV, all of those types of things are not only becoming extremely expensive and highly competitive, but it's extremely difficult to track that ROAS at that level of media. And so it's very important that you're at least getting into digital and starting to show that you can build your base off of digital as well.
And I just want to add to what Jordan said, which is 100% correct. And we've been partners in arms. We've stepped into law firms to help them get ready for private equity. She's worn all the hats. And we bring a lot of financial resources in with us as well. What I would say is important to everyone. If you don't know how to do this, just reach out. We can help you do it fairly quickly. If you're thinking about this, take your numbers and give them to someone you trust that understands the private equity or outside investor lens and have them convert your numbers from cash to GAAP, right? And then in part of doing that is understand how your compensation will flow through there. Understand how much of the family business or family expenditures are running through there. Understand, what are add backs, these types of things, so that you can understand through the investor lens, how is an investor going to look at my business versus how I am optimizing it today for cash and tax purposes, right? So it's really, really important, if you're thinking about doing this, to bring in someone that can translate your financials to how an investor will view them. This also will stop you from having surprises when you go in and you allow the investor in, and you go in with one expectation around what your financial picture is, and they tell you it's something completely different. So prepare.
Terrific. And that's a great lead in, Seth, to our final thoughts. So it's great having Seth Deutsch and Jordan McMillian from Samson Partners Group with us today, talking about private equity and the sales of personal injury law firms. Seth, some final thoughts to share, and then Jordan, and then I'll wrap it up.
Oh gosh, we're here to help. We love helping founders. We're running a special right now. It sounds like we're from Kmart or something. I just dated myself. But if you go buy our book called The Owner's Manual, it's on Amazon. I'm sure you guys will be provided with the link. We also have a form on our website, which will help us and help you assess your readiness for a transaction with outside investors. If you read the book, fill out the form, and do that before the end of the year, you'll get a free 1-hour consultation with Jordan and some other members of our team. And then, and we're doing that for the first 100 companies that do that before the end of the year across all industries. But here we are talking to the PI segment. And then what we're going to do is take the top 5 that we really have an interest in helping. And likely in February, we're going to do a 1-day offsite with me. I usually charge about $50,000 for a 1-day offsite in a cohort. And we're going to give that away for free to help founders that we really want to, marshal together with and help out. We're going to do that for free. So if you're interested, get the book, download the sheet, put in a little bit of work. It'll probably take you 2 hours to read the book and 5 minutes to fill out the form, and then get with Jordan. And if we can just help you in that hour, we're so happy. And a lot of the tools that we use to help founders do this are free on our website. If you never talk to us and you just leverage those resources, our hope is that we can help you just through the material we've put out.
Terrific. Thanks so much. Jordan, please.
I would just say, first of all, Jeremy, thank you for having us. And it's been a great conversation. I would really just encourage everyone, Seth mentioned it earlier, but I would really just encourage you, it's an exciting time in this market. And I think everyone is keen to figure out what it means for them. But just don't lose sight of the firm that you created. And stay true to what it is that you want. Seth talked about how we typically ask people, what is your why? And what are you really trying to do? We're not fancy people. And so we just want to know, what is the goal? And it's really important not to lose sight of that. Anytime that you're entering a process, and truly anytime that you're prepping to transact, everything that you do in preparation should also, if a transaction doesn't go through, it should also just make your business better. And so that's what's really important is to ensure that you understand what it is that you're trying to get out of preparing for an exit. And then if, like Seth said, if we can help in any way, that's wonderful for us. We want to be a part of that journey. But if it's just even taking the assessment and figuring out what are the 2 or 3 things that you can do to really clean up and get ready, that is great for us.
Terrific. And I'll just share some thoughts as well. So thank you again very much to Seth and Jordan for joining us. Thank you for adding so much clarity. Okay, there is so much buzz in the personal injury law industry about the entry of private equity and valuations and multiples and the structure and the time frame. So from hearing it directly from the both of you and really hearing just how dedicated you are to make sure that the structures and the sales and the process is really best in class. So we heard that loud and clear from the both of you. My message to share in terms of the state of the market for law firm sales with a focus on personal injury law is that private equity funding is here. It's in the marketplace. It was expected for years to come. We'd always looked at dental, started looking at accounting. Now it is here in personal injury law. It's going to be here in additional practice areas as well. So for those firms that are fortunate enough to be at that platform level, please follow the advice of Jordan and Seth. Get your arms around best operations, best finances, be talking with the right people about how to structure yourself for a sale, and then hopefully a follow-up sale as well at some point. For additional firms, the opportunities for the roll-ups, the add-ons, I really heard the opportunity there that it's so important for, I'll call them mid-sized to smaller size personal injury law firms. Please run your firm like a business. As Jordan was recommending, bring in non-lawyer COO, non-lawyer CFO, as Seth mentioned about masterminds that are available to be best in class. Because even if you're not a platform acquisition, certainly what I'm hearing is that, and hearing directly from Seth and Jordan today, is the opportunities for being an add-on, being part of a roll-up. Those are going to be real opportunities as well for personal injury law firms. And then Seth, I think you introduced a word to the English language today, which was untransactionable, I think you said, or untractable. It was somewhere in between.
Untransactable.
Right, untransactable. It's important for senior attorney personal injury law firms to recognize that in particular. We are in an age of digital disruption. Okay. And Jordan just mentioned that word of mouth was great during its era. That was pre-Google, certainly pre-2020. And if you're continuing to run a firm that's based upon word of mouth, you may have great trial lawyers at your firm, which are going to add amazing value to these firms, these platform acquisitions, roll-ups. They need your great trial lawyer skills. But if you're not attracting the clients, then your firm will unfortunately become untransactable. And so a message there is to those law firms that have great lawyers and great books of business, but are still relying upon word of mouth. Please consider selling your firm in the short term, or take the steps that Jordan and Seth are talking about to make your firm more attractive, probably not at that platform acquisition level, but at that roll-up add-on level. So again, Jordan and Seth, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're right at the buzzer beater level up stage, but Seth, please go for it.
May I just add one thing, which is at the end of the day, many founders think of this as a financial transaction, and that is true. However, this is an emotional commitment. It's an operational test, and it's a relationship decision. You really need to understand and search yourself. Why are you doing this? Why are you thinking about doing this? And I'll remind pretty much every single person that's listening to this is a founder. You founded your business because you couldn't work for someone else. And I will remind you that when you are thinking about entering into a partnership with private equity, if you're going to be rolling over equity, if you're going to be staying on, you must think about this as a marriage. If you're going to be selling your business outright, right, you're not staying on, you're probably still going to be required to roll some equity, et cetera. You're going to lose control of what happens there. And so, founders are entering, and we see this in every industry. This is an emotional decision. This is a commitment. This is to be thought of as a marriage, right? And it's the old-fashioned kind. It cannot end in divorce. And so private equity is not a monolithic thing. Investors, these are people, right? They're all different. They all have different strategies. I really want you to think about what is it that you want for yourself, for your family, for your people, for your future. This is not for everyone, and it will never be for everyone. And I need you to understand that as going forward, you are going to be teaming with others if you choose to go down this path. And so to do just as much diligence on anyone that you might be partnering with as they will do on you.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much to the both of you. Wish you great success. And that is the state of the market for law firm sales. Today's focus on personal injury law. Thank you.